He takes it apart and he goes, "Who built this transmission?" I says, "Some kid in Ohio." He's all, "Take his tools away." When considering going cannonballing, there's cars that come right to the front of your mind. You're like, that's the car. That's the car. Perfect for this, 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 and this. And even doing the 2904 and having a budget of $2,904, there's still cars that immediately come to mind. And you're like, yes. Well, I ended up with a cannonball car that probably nobody should ever have cannonballed. Its name was Ultrabeige, and it was a 1977 Chevrolet Monte Carlo Landau. And I picked it up from Cannonball legend and record holder, as he'll tell you repeatedly, Doug Tabbitt. Now, to go back, Ultrabeige's life began with the 2904, which we had kind of worked in the C2C Express class to it. So you could either be running a 2904 car, the real 2904, or bend C2C rules, which were pre-79 and earlier cars for less than $3,000. Doug Tabbitt picked that up and interpreted that as getting a car from, I believe, his best friend's great aunt or something. So he decided to interpret the rules by adding another $35,000 to make it cannonball ready, to make it the ultimate cannonball car. And when I think ultimate cannonball car, I think about a overweight, poorly built Malaise era Chevrolet that originally I think had a 305 in it, which is, of course, one of the worst engines ever created. And he went about and built it with QA1 Restomod suspension and coilover shocks. And remember, this is Doug's first cannonball car. So he's never done this before. And what I always advise people is like, just do it once for fun in something, manageable to see if you like it and learn from that. Now, Doug went all in. He's going to do this. He's going to crush Arnie Toman. The best part was, and I totally admired it, him and his teammates all showed up with like 70s puffy jackets and, porn stashes on, and they were playing the part of Ultrabeige, and it was spot on. It was beautiful. The ultimate built car gets out of New York, and it sounds monstrous. And this is another thing, almost straight pipes to the back. Just that's going to go real well in hour 20, hearing the roar of a big V8. They get as far as Pennsylvania, I think, and the transmission lets go because power. So that's the end of that adventure. That should have been the end of Ultrabeige for a normal person. Well, Doug's a car guy. I'm a car guy. And car guys don't make wise choices. That was the last year of the 2904. The next year, Ben was going to run the C2C Express again. This is Ultrabeige's big chance of redemption. He comes back in 2018 and wins. All right, he got it. Everything came together. 33 hours, 33 minutes. It goes coast to coast, which is impressive for any car, but especially for this thing. So it wins. I think he tried again in 2019 with the final running of the C2C, and it failed again or didn't make it all the way. So it had one glorious moment, and really at that point, it should be put into the Doug Tabbitt Museum. Well, 2 years ago, there was an auction that was set up by a company, auction company, and we were going to do this charity auction. Ed Bowling was did it, and I did it, and Doug did it, and I did the BMW M6 from Car Trek, and basically the idea was you picked a charity, and all the profits went to that charity. And Doug stepped up, and he was going to donate the entire cost, whatever that was paid for, all that money was going to go to his charity. And so I was like, I'll help build these things up. I mean, everybody bids and does shill bids on lines. And I was pushing up a few cars to kind of get things going. And this happens from time to time. I pushed it up and I couldn't resist bidding 12,904. I couldn't. I was like, I'm going to do it. So 12,904. And the clock ticks down. And it was like one of those auctions that, you know, usually you want to be the high bidder and win. This was the one where I was like, come on, just somebody, $1 more. Just I mean, I wanted to help out, but I don't. Oh, ding. I own Ultrabeige. I've actually never bought anybody else's Cannonball car. So it was an intriguing prospect. I'd always prepped and done my cars. All, by the way, made it coast to coast. I'm like, you know what? I'll go. I'm not going to ship it. It seems appropriate. It's a Cannonball car. I'm going to fly out to Ohio and drive it home. Like, who wouldn't? Why wouldn't you? Call up Doug. Will it make it to California? Sure. Like, okay. Fill it up with 60 gallons of gas and we'll head out. And it all worked out, kind of timed out perfectly because it was my brother's birthday and he lived in Kentucky. I was going to swing through there and it was going to be just a nice leisurely jaunt across the US. And again, I haven't seen Ultrabeige since the start in 2017. And he had taken the crazy front bumper off and he had put on the original 400-pound chrome bumper on the front. But for the most part, it kind of looked like the same car. Pull up, and Doug runs a storage facility. And where's Ultrabeige? Outside on the lawn with a battery tender on it. I'm like, this is promising. He gives me all the files. I mean, he bought it. It was the original owner, was the great aunt, was the original owner of the car. So, I mean, the original window sticker, pictures of her and her husband in front of it with proudly bought their brand new Monte Carlo in 1977. And then Doug did that to it. I mean, it was probably a really immaculate car when they got it. So we got all the records, got everything, and it's time to shove off. And I didn't get any real clear instructions about the car. Sitting in it for the first time, realized it does not have a speedometer or an odometer. He's replaced the entire front of the dash with a giant tack and a bunch of gauges. Now, he burned through 2 transmissions with this. So there's 2 transmission gauges, like temperature gauges in there, one of which is covered in electrical tape, which was a little confusing. Some of the gauges worked, some didn't. And a lot of wires hanging from the dashboard. They had pulled out whatever countermeasures and cheaty things they had in there. So it just left just wires everywhere. Fired up, and I'm going to drive away. And Doug's face of relief as he saw Ultrabeige go away. It's when you buy a boat and sell a boat moment is the 2 best days of your life. And you could just see him going, and Ultrabeige is gone. And I got through the local streets, got onto a small little highway heading for 80. I'm like, this drive's really weird. It just seemed to lug, like the engine was surging. And I'm like, what? I couldn't figure it out. And I totally forgotten, he had told me this, that they had swapped the rear end for like a 273, like something ridiculously low, so that it would have a lot of top end. And the car would only shift from overdrive to third. There was no lower gears to go to because of the linkage they put in there. So I drop it into third just to bring the RPMs up. And the car at any speed is at like 1,100 RPM. It's going, I get to Kentucky and I spend the night with my family. And I'm like, all right, it made it this far. The next step was the big push west. And I didn't want to do it alone. So I flew Mechanic Matt out to St. Louis, and I picked him up there at the airport. And we started our journey. We head up through there and up through Kansas, and we're going to move up to 80. We start cruising, and the surging is coming back. It's surging and going. And it feels like the tune. It feels like that something's going on fuel-wise. And I'm thinking maybe that gas is in there from 2019. Like, it hasn't driven it. So we burn through much gas as we can, and then we put in a fresh load of gas. Hopefully. And these are the kind of stupid moments even car guys have where you start negotiating with yourself. Like filling it up with gas is going to cure the problem. Like, no, it's not going to. Like if you just turn the lights on and off again, it runs better. Like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's something seriously wrong. And you just ignore it. And we get into Wyoming. Now, Wyoming, the Oklahoma of the North. No, I shouldn't say that. Nothing's as bad as Oklahoma. So we get into Wyoming, and it's the least populous state. There's very few towns there. And we somehow get really, truly in the middle of nowhere. And it starts slowing down. And I'm looking at Matt. Matt's like, I don't know what's going on. And it comes back. I'm like, oh, it's back. It's back. Everything's fine. Let's just fill it up with gas again because that'll fix it. And it slowed down and slowed down and slowed down until we pull over and it just won't go anywhere. And it died in Wyoming. And this was November, like late November. So it is cold. You start figuring out what's the plan at this point? What the heck are we going to do? When I get going, I have a tendency not want to stop. So I'm like, what is alternate 3? Like, what is the option? And I'm like, we'll get a Penske truck and a trailer, because you definitely don't want to call U-Haul anywhere. Penske truck and trailer, and we'll just trailer it home. Well, where's the closest Penske truck and trailer? Casper, Wyoming, 121 miles away. I called AAA. AAA's going, where are you? I explained to them. They're like, wow, they thought I was in California from, my number. Like, are you near your house? Like, nope, but as possibly as far from my house as I could be. They call the tow truck, and it's usually they'll let you know. They have a little app that helps you figure things out. And I'm listening. I'm on the app and we're watching. It says 15 minutes. I'm like, that's really fast. Man, that guy must really know how to hustle. Well, perfect. 15 minutes, for 15 minutes, then for another 15 minutes, and then for another 15 minutes. After an hour and 15 minutes, I call AAA again. Like, where's my truck? And they're like, oh, he's there in 15 minutes. It says 15 minutes. I go, I know, I'm reading the same thing. Don't you actually in contact with a human being? They're like, yeah. And finally, after 2 hours, I call AAA so many times. I'm like, give me the number of the tow truck company. I will bother him. I call the tow truck company. They're like, yeah. I'm like, where is he? And they're like, oh, we just called him. He was asleep. Oh, all right. He'll be there in 15 minutes. 15 minutes goes by. Guess you're going to be shocked to hear this. No tow truck. I call back the tow truck company. They're like, he should be there. I'm like, he's not here. I gave them the mile marker. It was right in front of us. He had juxtaposed like mile marker 415 for 455. He had gone east the same distance as we were west. So now he's a half an hour, 45 minutes away. And it's cold and starting to get dark. And I called the Penske place up in Casper and I said, listen, I need whatever truck you have and a car trailer. What time do you close? They're like 6 o'clock. I'm like, I have to be there by 6. And it's like 2-3 right now. And they're 100 and something miles away. I'm like, this is going to be really close. So finally, the guy shows up, pulls the truck up. He's all hot and bothered, went the wrong way. We woke him up from his nap, and he's in the wrong truck. He's in the crappy truck, and he was in the crappy truck because we put it on. He does the rollback. We hook it up. It pulls it up halfway up the ramp, and the truck dies. And for the next 20 minutes, he's trying to get his truck fixed. I'm like, great. We're going to be on a tow truck that's going to be on the tow truck. We pull up to the Penske shop at 5:59. And the guy literally has his keys in his hand, like he's going to lock up. But out front, as promised, truck, trailer. We pull Ultrabeige off, and the transmission works enough. We were worried about getting it up on the trailer because those rental trailers don't have winches. But it has just enough in it, just enough to make a run at it. And I drove it because Matt was scared. And I would drive with a bit of speed to literally just jump it onto there. So, and almost went into the truck, land it, tie it down, pay the guy, tip the driver, and we're off to California. Ultrabeige makes it to California. Welcome to California, Ultrabeige. Your days of wallowing in the Rust Belt are over. We're going to put you out to pasture. But honestly, I never really wanted Ultrabeige to begin with. Took it for some drives after we got it fixed. It, again, had to do the entire transmission. So pull the transmission out and took it to my transmission guy. And he calls me up, he takes it apart and he goes, "Who built this transmission?" I says, "Some kid in Ohio." He's all, "Take his tools away." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "There's a used pump in here. There's new parts. There's old parts. This is a mess." He goes, "I'm surprised you made it that far." He goes, "This is horrible. I'm going to do it right." So he rebuilt it with carbon clutches and all kinds of cool stuff because he was into the whole cannonball thing. And I think we drove it 2 or 3 times. Ultrabeige really doesn't fit in. I don't feel like shaving my beard and just having the mustache. So as much as I thought it was a cool car, and as much as, this is weird, and this happens to everybody, I think, is once you own something for a certain period of time, you start liking it. Like looking over at Ultrabeige, you're like, it's not a bad looking car. And when you say that out loud about a 76 Monte Carlo, it's time to sell it. Something's gone horribly wrong. It's fascinating how difficult it is to sell a beige Monte Carlo with only one back seat, a 60-gallon fuel tank in the back, and half the dashboard torn off. You'd be surprised to hear. Eventually, a cannonballer, a fan of Cannonball, and a gentleman who already owns a Cannonball car, he stepped up and was like, "I'll buy Ultrabeige." And I'm all, great. Because at first I thought, I can get 20 grand for Ultrabeige. It's got all this money and a brand new transmission. I just dumped $3,500 into a transmission. No. I've only lost money. I've owned over 200 cars. And I've only lost money on 2 cars. A Volvo V70R and Ultrabeige. Because honestly, I just wanted it gone. And we sent it to go onto the loading truck. And Matt was taking it down the road. And I'm pretty sure I had the exact same expression that Doug did as when I drove away. I was like, "Goodbye, Ultrabeige. Good riddance."
Finding your next dream car can be like searching for a needle in a haystack, but the best tool to use is Autotempest.com. Autotempest is the smartest and most powerful tool to search for your next car or your dream car because they allow you to search all the major listing sites at once. Their motto is all the cars, one search, and they've been supporting VINwiki for the last 3 years. Quite honestly, it's the first place I go to look when I'm searching for my next car, and I think that you'll absolutely love it. So check them out today at the link in the description below and thank them for their continued support of VINwiki.